I never thought a single night could change the way I saw everything I had built. Emily had always been careful with her words, her smiles, the way she held back certain truths. But that night, her facade cracked in the most dangerous way. I had been working late at the office, the hum of fluorescent lights keeping me company as I went through the quarterly reports. My phone buzzed, a message from her. "James, we need to talk. It's important." I had learned over the years to measure the weight of those words. When Emily said something was important, it usually meant she was manipulating something behind the curtain. I arrived home and found the living room dimly lit, the faint scent of her perfume lingering in the air. She was sitting there, a folder in her hand, eyes calm but calculating. "I think it's time you knew the truth," she said. My heart sank, because I had a sense I already knew. Or at least I suspected more than I wanted to admit. She laid out pages and documents that seemed to tell a story. A story where I had made mistakes, where I was portrayed as reckless with our finances, irresponsible, maybe even dishonest. She had built her case carefully enough that even my own doubts started to creep in. I felt my confidence wobble. But something inside me didn't let me surrender so easily. I had learned the hard way that appearances can be deceiving, that truth hides beneath layers of intent. I asked for a few hours to review everything. She nodded, a small victorious smile curling on her lips, unaware that I had already known what she hadn't considered. Over the next few hours, I went through every call, every recording, every little detail that passed between us and our closest contacts. Piece by piece, the story she had crafted began to unravel. Not because it was wrong, but because it was incomplete. She had left gaps, overlooked the smallest details that would betray her intent. And as I listened carefully, I realized how easily her fake evidence could backfire. The truth had a rhythm, a pattern, and I could hear it clearly. By the time she came to check on my progress, I had made my plan. The calmness in her eyes was gone. She didn't realize that I was no longer the man she had tried to manipulate. I wasn't angry yet, not really. Anger is too raw, too visible. I had something far more effective in mind. The next morning, I invited Emily to sit with me at the kitchen table, the sunlight cutting through the blinds and casting lines across the floor. She arrived with her usual confident stride, unaware that her carefully built empire of lies was already crumbling in the quiet of my review. "So did you look at everything?" she asked, a trace of impatience creeping into her tone. I nodded slowly, keeping my expression neutral. "Yes, I did," I said. I began to speak, calmly, deliberately, letting my words land like soft but precise blows. "You've been very thorough," I started. "But thorough doesn't mean accurate." I watched her face carefully, noticing the small twitch in her jaw, the way her hands fidgeted with the edge of the folder she had clutched so tightly the night before. I explained how every recording, every email, every little interaction she thought she had twisted to her advantage actually told a different story when placed in the right context. I could see her unease growing, a subtle shift in her posture that betrayed her usual poise. As I went through the recordings, piece by piece, I watched Emily's confidence crumble. She had painted me as the villain, but the more I revealed, the more the truth became undeniable. She had omitted moments where she contradicted herself, overlooked her own manipulations, and underestimated my awareness of her patterns. By the time I reached the end, the folder she had used to build her narrative seemed insignificant, almost laughable. The victory she had anticipated had evaporated, leaving her exposed, vulnerable. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't make threats. I simply presented the facts as they were, allowing the evidence to speak louder than any argument I could have made. The room was thick with tension, the silence punctuated only by the soft ticking of the kitchen clock. I could see it in her eyes, the realization that her attempt to control the narrative had failed. And then, when I placed the final recording on the table, the one where she inadvertently admitted to her own scheming, I saw something in her expression I hadn't expected. Panic. That small flicker, that hesitation, told me everything. She had counted on me being deceived, on me doubting my own memory, my own judgment. But I had anticipated her misstep, and now the entire plan had turned against her. Emily's face was pale, her usual composure shattered. She opened her mouth, probably to argue, to deflect, but no words came out. I didn't rush her. I let the weight of the recordings sink in. Each clip, each carefully documented moment, was like a mirror reflecting her true intentions back at her. She had tried to rewrite history, to make herself the victim and me the guilty party, but the truth was relentless, unforgiving, and it demanded recognition. I leaned back in my chair, keeping my tone steady, almost detached. Do you see now? I asked quietly. This isn't about blaming or accusing. This is about reality. And reality doesn't bend to the will of those who manipulate it. Her hands shook slightly, the folder she had once wielded with authority now trembling like a fragile shield. She was silent, because she knew there was nothing left to argue. Her plan, her scheme, had backfired in a way she hadn't anticipated. I had thought, before all of this, that betrayal might break me, that facing deception from the person I trusted most could crush the foundation of my life. But presenting the full recordings had done more than expose her. It had restored my own clarity, my own power. I realized that truth, once uncovered, is a force that cannot be contained. And watching Emily grapple with the consequences, I felt a strange mix of relief and vindication. It wasn't about revenge for me, it was about justice, and about reclaiming control of my life from someone who had tried to rewrite it. Finally, I stood up, placing the last folder on the table with deliberate care. You wanted me to see your version, I said, voice calm. So here it is. The full picture. Now you have to live with it. Her silence was deafening, the tension so thick it felt almost tangible. For the first time in weeks, I felt the weight lift from my chest. Emily had underestimated me. And in doing so, she had revealed herself completely. I didn't gloat, I didn't celebrate. I simply walked away, knowing that the truth had already spoken. That night, alone in the quiet of my home, I realized something profound. Trust can be shattered, lies can be crafted with precision, but when the truth is presented in its entirety, deception cannot survive. And for the first time in months, I felt something I hadn't in a long time: freedom.